Welcome to the Convergence Advantage, the official podcast of the Caribbean Investment Summit CIS 2026. Today, we're asking a critical question. Can migration capital truly drive national development, or is it just used as a revenue flow? Joining us today is Mr. Thomas Anthony, CEO of the IMA Grenada Investment Migration Agency of Grenada, to explore three core ideas. One, how CBI capital must be strategically directed and not just collected. Two, why alignment with national priorities determine long-term credibility. And thirdly, what leadership looks like in a convergent global market. Mr. Thomas Anthony, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing well, Statue. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Nice to have you. It's been quite a while. And could you give us a brief introduction of yourself and your role within the IMA Grenada?
Well, I like to think that I'm well known in the industry, but for those who are not aware, my name is Thomas Anthony. I am currently the Chief Executive Officer of Investment Migration Agency Grenada. Prior to this position, which started in April of 2023, I worked with the Antigua program from inception. I've also worked with Exeger, a due diligence firm that operates in the industry. And prior to that, I am coming to the industry with about 26 years of banking experience.
And tell us a bit more, Thomas, because this one is a bit personal to me. As you would know, we would have been on this journey quite some time. And the Caribbean Investment Summit journey, we like to laugh. We talk about how it all started. But tell me, how did you first become involved in this space? And tell us a bit more about your professional background, please.
Yeah, so in it was 2013, I was making some decisions about what my career would look like or my professional life would look like, given that the entity for which I worked then, the offshore bank, had made a decision to end its wealth management division, given the effects of the global meltdown that we all experienced between 2008 and for the Caribbean, it affected us well beyond 2008 into 2015. And so, given that as I said, my then employer had made a decision to sever employees that worked for its wealth management division, of which I was the manager, I was trying to make some decisions about what my professional life looked like beyond that, and came across some ads for the Antigua and Barbuda Citizenship by Investment Unit. It was to be the first employees to start the program, of course, build a foundation for the program. And I thought that I could bring my banking experience to bear. And so I applied for one of the positions, and I started in the industry in August of 2013. I worked with the Antigua program until May of 2017, worked with Exeger for a year. After that, I then worked with the then Citizenship by Investment Unit of Grenada from 2018 to 2019. Did some consulting between 2019 and 2023. And here I am again since April of 2023. And during that period, there were lots of things that we did as an Antigua program because we were building the program from scratch. But there were some things that I did that I'm personally proud of. And one of them, as you know, I talk about it every chance I get, is the creation of this, could be called the parent of this event. In that, in 2016, I created the event. It was hosted in Antigua in 2016, hosted again in Antigua in 2017, moved to St. Kitts 2018 and 2019. Grenada was to have been the location for the event in 2020, but we know what happened. And so there was a hiatus. And again, I believe I played an important role in resuscitating the event in Grenada in 2023, 2024, sorry, my bad, in 2024. So here we are. This event is really close to my heart. And I think it's really important for the industry, but more particularly for the Eastern Caribbean, as we chart the way forward for these programs.
Thank you so much for that very sound background, and we are truly appreciative of your vision in starting such a pivotal and important summit for the type of conversation that we realize is taking place today. Certainly, the forum, the premier forum for this type of conversation and discourse.
I was saying, but you guys have taken it to another level. Pleased with what I'm seeing, over these last few years in terms of what we're able to achieve as a collective in terms of this event, the important role, the seriousness with which it is taken by the heads of government and by the heads of units and other people in our space. So I'm quite pleased with what I've been seeing over the last few years since we resuscitated the event.
Thank you so much. I'm happy you're pleased. Now, to dive into the core of what this really is and what it means, yeah? So, your wealth of experience within the industry and your wealth of experience having been at the helm of IMA Grenada and steering the Grenada program specifically, what are the core mandates of IMA Grenada? And specifically, how does it fit within Grenada's broader national development strategy? Could you speak a bit to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the intention of the founders of the program was to provide for a non-tax revenue stream to help support government developmental programs, and more particularly to help to grow the tourism sector. As you know, across the region, and Grenada is no different, the tourism is the main contributor to GDP. And it was felt that Grenada, in order to compete in the tourism space, needed to grow its room count, increase its room count, so that you could bring more people to the island, but also that you could negotiate with carriers to add more airlift to the destination. And so you would see that going back historically, you would see that most of the program started as a real estate, or more particularly hotel sector program. Uh, the National Transformation Fund component was added subsequently. So it was a deliberate attempt to help to build out the room count on the island. And post the 2008 global meltdown economic meltdown that I spoke of earlier, conventional financing for hotel plants did not exist in the region. It dried up completely. And so this was a novel way of trying to ensure that we could provide revenue to build out the hotel plant and thereby build out the tourism sector.
Thank you so much for that. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say, and then also, of course, that added to that initial goal and objective subsequently was the opportunity to raise revenue for government, non-tax revenue, to help, as I said, drive the developmental goals of the country.
And it's interesting, and we'll have some conversation back and forth on this because indeed, tourism is the mainstay for most of our small island developing states. Yeah, especially Grenada, who's now one of the emerging islands where that is concerned. You look at various aspects where that investment is important. Just speaking recently with the GTA new CEO, she has indicated that she has an interest, in particular, in coming this year to CIS because they're also looking at various ways they can broaden their investment take. It's quite interesting because the Convergence Advantage this year speaks to the broadening of your portfolio, looking at the sovereign portfolio, etc. And so, as we look to align, Thomas, the migration capital with your development goals on a whole as a country, can you, from your perspective, share how has the investment in the migration landscape so far during your tenure has helped to evolve both the tourism and other areas of Grenada so far?
Absolutely. So, incidentally, you mentioned GTA and its CEO. We are on the verge of signing an MOU with GTA because we recognize that there is synergy in what we do, that we could um, reap more benefits from having a CBI program if we work collaboratively. And so, with that in mind, we have crafted, we meaning GTA and IMA, an MOU, which we are close to signing off on, um, in recognition, as I said, that we're better together. Uh, so that's coming soon. Now, to address this specific question, in at, by the end of 2023, we saw revenue of more than 400 million EC dollars direct to government from this program. That does not include the investment into the developer, um, that investments that are made through the developer to construct these hotel plants, right? In 2024, that number grew to over $500 million. Yeah. Injection directly into government coffers. Again, not accounting for the investment directly into the approved projects, into the real estate option. All told, we're looking at around $2 billion over that period of time in terms of funds flow into the economy, right? In 2025, we saw a reduction, of course. We all anticipated that because we knew the main driver of the increase in 23 and 24 was led by the Russian applications, which we ceased accepting in 2023. So, but notwithstanding, we're talking about a contribution of about 10% of government revenue. In 23, it was about 30%. In 24, it was more than 30%. And it's fallen back to about 10%. But 10% is still significant in terms of revenue to government to support the budget, but also to help with specific developmental goals. Apart from the direct government revenue to government, we also saw the opening of the Six Senses Hotel, the Six Senses Beach House by Six Senses Hotel, the near completion of the Intercontinental Hotel, uh, the and these we have to remember that these provide economic opportunities, job opportunities at the construction phase, and then at the operational phase. And the fact that two of these major hotels, Six Senses and Intercontinental, are located in an area where prior to that, there was not that level of investment, economic activity, it's created an opportunity. Well, it's actually changed the landscape, the economic landscape of that part of Grenada, providing jobs for hundreds of individuals, again, during construction, and now for Six Senses during the operational phase, during construction for Intercontinental, and then they'll be hiring from that community once the project is completed. So, and we know that there's a multiplier effect when people are employed or when construction, there's construction, major construction taking place. in a community where you have these support services, vendors, for example, yeah, providing breakfast, lunch, for these construction workers. But beyond that, the multiplier effect of individuals being able to support their families. So a significant contributor to direct revenue, government revenue, but also to the economy more broadly.
Thank you so much for that detailed in the breakdown of how the investment migration industry and the revenues received there has had an impact. There is, on Grenada, the economy specifically, there is in this modern day, Thomas, as you're aware, as you move around, right, a need for more mobility, even for professionals, etc. And so, one question comes to mind is at this critical stage of the market evolution, how does how is Grenada catering to the modern, more impact-driven mobile professional who just wants to relocate, work from anywhere? Is that part of your tourism and the development strategy? And how is this industry helping with that?
Well, this is something that we're talking about. What other kinds of programs can we add? And this is why we created the platform that we did in 2024, March of 2024, investment migration, rather than just citizenship by investment, because we wanted to have the opportunity to create other means by which individuals could invest in the country, move to the country, work remotely from the country. Yeah, so this is an ongoing conversation that we're having on island in terms of what other ways, means, programs can we create to allow individuals to benefit from the perhaps being here, if that's one model, or but also um, being able to participate in their home countries, but being remote. And one of the things we're talking about is a nomad visa. We've also talked about program, a residency program, but those haven't come to fruition yet. But the conversation is ongoing.
Those certainly sound innovative and creative, Thomas. And I know that IMA Grenada has been known for its innovation, for its creativity. Yeah, and the name for sure, IMA Investment Migration Agency of Grenada, was brilliant in and of itself. I won't take any credit for working along with the agency.
Yes, Statue. You and your team led that effort, and we're very appreciative of that. Excellent work.
Thank you so much. And again, brilliant, brilliant vision on your part because in a world where global scrutiny intensifies and, you're looking closely at how uh, investment, migration, capital should be structured, etc. How, from your perspective, should that work to continue that innovation and development driven agenda of Grenada and, of course, the wider OECS territories? How, in your mind, should the global migration capital be structured and governed to remain credible for development?
Thanks for that opportunity, Statue. And what I'm about to give you is my own view and not necessarily the view of the committee or the agency. But I think it that you're asking for my opinion, and so therefore I'm going to give you my view as I look exactly as I look out at the program, the current environment, and what's coming down the pipe. So I think the preferred structure ought to be that we move away from having a real estate or approved project component. We move to a model where we create a um, sovereign wealth fund or an economic development fund, which structures around it in terms of how the monies are to be used, how individuals or entities access the money, and what sectors of the economy broadly the money is to be invested in. And then from that fund, government would engage in PPPs, public private partnerships, with various entities in terms of um, achieving its the developmental agenda. So that if the decision, for example, is to build a 300 room hotel in a particular part of the country, then that is done through a PPP rather than having the developer going directly to the market to find investors. That would be my preferred model. And then also using the funds that flow through that fund to make determinations about specifically where in the economy you want to see the impact revenue. And for me, it gives government the opportunity to then become to provide concessionary loans, right? Loans at concessionary rates. But more importantly for me is to become an equity partner in that development, in that private project, to become an equity partner so that you're creating another revenue stream for government. You can then have an arrangement or agreement where the the private entity then buys out government over a period of time, buys the equity out over a period of time, so that they can have full ownership of the project if that's their desire. But I think it's important that government start participating from an equity perspective in some of these developmental projects so that you're not earning money once, but you're earning money over time.
This is indeed a quite innovative approach, and yeah,
Yeah, and that way, statute government gives itself the opportunity to benefit more fully from having a program. Your government controls the flow of funds out to those areas that government want to see affected. Currently, across the region, we're seeing that most of these projects are in the tourism sector. Why are we not providing opportunities for cottage industries to grow, for example? Why are we not, as a government, determining um, the projects that we want to see in the um, geographical areas that we want to see, and then having the funds flow to those projects and to those areas of the country and the economy through these PPPs.
you have you have certainly, Thomas. I mean, no surprises here because as a pioneer, the only pioneer would call you in the whole investment migration, at least over the past decade or so. You're speaking to things here that is certainly groundbreaking and futuristic. Yes, they are your views, but having them advanced at some stage, especially at a time when the industry is facing so much shakeup, these restrictions and global pressures to do better or to prove really the worth of the industry. You've certainly put on the table here some structure that can give the program more legs and more relevance, and it can continue to grow to be that impact that it needs be for each of the local economies, especially in Grenada. And I wanted to pose another question that comes to mind based on this particular direction you're going. You know, IMA Grenada intends to show up at CIS 26, and you've always shown up strong. And so this year, looking at what one can expect, this type of narrative, I imagine, is going to continue there from your perspective. But there have also been a number of changes, ranging from the regulatory shifts as well as things like residency, as you alluded to earlier, vetting, validity requirements. You've even mentioned the need for probably some sort of nomad visa, things like that. Will you be addressing some of these things at CIS?
Yes, you know that I tend to speak my mind. I tend to be as frank and honest as I can be in terms of my view of the
It's,
programs.
it's important.
And I'm not shy about sharing my opinion. So yes, I'll be addressing some of these issues given the opportunity so to do. But you know, if I go back to the previous question, if we're honest with ourselves, we will. we will agree that most of the reputational harm that takes place in this industry relates to the development component, the approved project component, the claims of price discounting, um, for example. And then we also have to do some cleaning up on the marketing agent side of things, where we're seeing these images of passports for sale and videos about, buying and selling passports, which is for me personally quite offensive. And so there's some work to be done if we're serious about these programs having longevity and bringing back some integrity to the program.
And so if persons who are aligned to the industry wants to remain aligned and you're showing up at CIS, what would you say are some of the conversations for this evolving program that persons could expect when it comes to things like the regulatory realities and investor demand? And it's the reason I'm asking this, of course, because that's really the conversation. We're looking ahead, we're looking at how things are evolving. So what would you say those type of conversations should be, and what would you advise people who are attending the conference?
Yeah, a new day is coming. A new day is coming. We're going to have uh, certainly as early as July, as late as September, what's called a regional regulator. This is a regional standard setting body. And apart from setting standards, monitoring that those standards are being adhered to, and with the power to administer punitive action, to take punitive action. Um, and this will not be just for the units, yeah, or governments, but it will include stakeholders such as agents, developers, as well. So, whereas over the last decade or so, we've had uh, an industry where you have the opportunity for arbitrage between islands, for example, that is going to be a thing of the past. And so the stakeholders, the players in this market space will have to change the way that they conduct business because uh, now you're looking at not just a particular country being able to make decisions about whether you can operate in their in that space in that country, but you're looking at uh, the regional regulator, an independent standard setting body that will be able to make determinations of whether or not you can operate in the region. So that in itself is a different playing field altogether. Apart from the regional regulator itself as an entity, the um, as a region, the countries have made some changes that are important for stakeholders to understand. And I think we'll have some discussions around those at CIS statute. So, for example, a residency requirement, 30 days over 5 years, passport being issued for 5 years, and the requirements being monitored. And if those requirements are not met, such as the residency requirement, there's an educational component that is also coming to the program. Um, the depositing of biometrics, not just fingerprints, over that period of time. And if those things are not done, then a new passport will not be issued. So, as advisors of applicants, or advisors of your clients, it's important that you become familiar with the what's coming down the pipe in the next few months. For those who are not, who do not have access to the regional act that was passed, regional regulator act that was passed, you can reach out to me and I will try to provide you a link where you can become au fait with what the regulation looks like, the uh, guidelines and the regulations, well, the act, what the act looks like, I should say, And the guidelines and the regulations are being built out as we speak. And the intention is for those to be ready to go on day one of the regulator coming into being.
Very, very sound advice here, Thomas. And I must say, looking at the way the industry is evolving, it's always good to hear a perspective from someone like you who have such seasoned experience. Yeah? Because as I think about it, for intermediaries, advisors, and investors attending CIS, I can see where they can benefit from this sound advice and conversation that can be had with IMA Grenada, being led by your leadership, of course. Yeah. If I'm to look ahead a little bit, just looking ahead, IMA Grenada has led the way when it comes to innovation, evidenced by that award you copped last year for innovation in the space. Yeah. If we are to look ahead a little bit, do you see a future where AI driven due diligence, for example, becomes a global norm?
I do believe that that is the trend. That's where we're going to. As a matter of fact, in conversation with our DD providers, they are incorporating AI in terms of some of the research that they're doing. Now, you will always have to have, in my view, a human that vets that information before it's published. But I think that using AI uh, in the process can make us more efficient, and I think can add a level of accuracy that the human, uh, be given, our human frailties. Um, all of us are subject to some mistakes, but I think AI will help to make us more efficient. It can scrub far more data in a far less far less time, right? And so I think it's inevitable that AI is going to become more and more involved in the due diligence process. But again, uh, notwithstanding that, the end product is going to have to be verified, vetted and verified by a human. But certainly AI is going to enhance what we do. But also on the other side of things, AI gives applicants an opportunity to falsify documents with a quality that we've hence not seen. Yes? And so it makes the DD process even more challenging. And so you're going to have to bring AI to be able to ascertain some of these things on both sides.
On
On
both
both.
sides, certainly, because there's the quality assurance side on both sides. That is correct. And of course, speaking to biometrics and those things earlier, it is important that all entities within the region, all five, and maybe it's a six because St. Vincent have indicated that they will be bringing a program later this year, right? But do you see this realistically being integrated across the region based on how things are evolving?
The intention and the work is being done as we speak. I was just in Washington, for example. All six of the countries you mentioned were at this event in Washington, a 1 week event. So the work is being done. So biometrics is going to be standardized across the region. We're all going to independently collect our biometrics, but that information is going to be fed into JRCC's CARICOM Impacts database, and it will become part of JRCC's due diligence process as they assess these applicants. As you know, and listeners know, listeners and viewers, JRCC is a central part of the due diligence process, and they will continue to be so. But the their efforts will be enhanced with the collection of biometrics. So not just, as I said before, thumbprints, fingerprints, but facial recognition, iris, yeah, that will become part of the process. And as I said, individual countries will be charged with collecting the data, but that data will then be submitted to JRCC, and JRCC will make that part of its due diligence process. So individuals,
So it's certainly a shift.
and and not just the new applicants, huh? It's important that people understand it's not just biometrics, is not just for the new applicants. Biometrics is going to be for every citizen. So we're going to be collecting biometrics, not just for CBI citizens, but for every citizen of the country.
Yeah, and so you're correct, and I can see with the way things are trending, and you've clearly laid it out, that there's going to be an important need to have a mindset shift if you're to thrive in the industry. Yeah, and so could you could you comment a little bit on what type of mindset person should think about as the industry evolve, and also what type of institutional relationships might define the next phase of how of how the investment migration agency industry would be evolving. Just speak a bit of mindset shift and new type institutional relationships that would be important going forward.
So I'll answer the second part first, institutional relationships. So we've had more of a hands-off kind of approach with the immigration department, for example, as it conducts its work uh, related to issuance of passports. Uh, we're going to have a more integrated approach to the program going forward with the immigration department, with home affairs, yes, with the FIU, financial intelligence unit, and then, as I spoke earlier, this is why we also engaged with GTA, because we see a role for the Grenada Tourism Authority as well. These individuals are going to be required to come to the country. Do we just allow them to visit and off on their own frolic, or do we want to curate um, events, at least for their first time, so that they have a good experience, so that they want to come back again, so they want to recommend that their network to come to the country, and so it's going to be a more all of government. It has to be a more all of government approach. There's also the Grenada Investment Development Corporation, uh, which we are going to be having a closer relationship with. We've always worked with them, but now we're going to have an even closer relationship with that entity, because we see the need to be able, yeah, to be able to say to individuals, you've invested, you've become a citizen, but beyond that, here are some other investment opportunities. Here's how you can open a business. Yes. Here's how we can assist you with that process. So a more all of government effort, more integration across departments, government agencies and departments. In terms of remind me of the first part of the question, statue.
The first part is really now the mind.
Yeah,
You
the
speak about the
mindset shift.
new type of institutional relationships that must be fostered. The
Yeah.
second part of the mindset of persons in order to thrive in an industry that have been evolving this way.
Yes. Thanks for that. So we know, I think too many of us have looked at these individuals as separate from us, individuals who become citizens through the program. Yeah. I think it's time that we experience, or that we think of it differently, that we consider that these are citizens with an expansive network, citizens with an extensive net worth, citizens with specialized um, skills, experiences that we could benefit from. And so if we if we look at them in this way, These are citizens of the country, Grenada in this case, with that we can help or we can enlist their help to assist us in achieving specific developmental goals. So, a highly trained physician, for example, or a specialized psychologist in an area that does not exist on the island, for example, um, a entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur who could interact with our budding entrepreneurs, uh, a sustainable specialist that could come and help us in terms of meeting our SDAs. All right. So changing the mindset from that of those individuals over there to these individuals who are now part of us and from whom we can benefit, and they will also benefit, right? Um, in terms of achieving our developmental goals. So seeing them as citizens of the country who can bring to bear their network, their expertise, and quite frankly, stature. Some people don't like to hear me say this, but quite frankly, we could use a bigger population in most of these islands, in all of these islands. We're not economically
Absolutely, we all can, especially St. Kitts.
economically viable at the populations that we are currently. And if we can bring more individuals or encourage individuals to move, individuals who will start businesses, individuals who with experiences in certain industry. I, so the sheer number of individuals is important, but also bring in particular skills and individuals who are going to add to the economic activity of the country. So I think a mind shift, it's important to make that mind shift. They are not, in my view,
Yeah.
individuals who become citizens and so they're over there through the program, but individuals who are Grenadians and can uh, who can benefit from whom we can benefit in terms of developmental goal.
A contribution and benefit.
Exactly. Make a contribution beyond having become a citizen.
Absolutely, Thomas. And showcasing the wealth of your knowledge and experience, it is always a pleasure to just listen to you because you have the experience and you know so much and certainly laid out a good growth and development plan for the future. I would ask as we wrap up this podcast, if you just give your closing statement on behalf of IMA Grenada, certainly again proving why the name IMA Grenada is such a powerful name in today's day. It just speaks to all the futuristic things that's to come. But give us your closing remarks, Thomas, to the audience, welcoming them to CIS and encouraging at least the type of discourse and conversation that they can look forward to at this very important forum.
So I want to take this opportunity, Statue, to make a plug for why we deserve the Innovation Award again. Um, quite in a few days from now, we'll be rolling out a remote, a virtual office. So yes, we have a policy where individuals can work remotely 3 days out of a week. Um, but to manage that, we're actually creating a virtual office. And in this virtual office, you will be able to have private meetings. You'll be able to have group meetings. Um, you will be operating as if you're in the space. So it's a recreation, a virtual recreation of our actual office space. So that individuals, even though they're working remotely, they're not in the office, will still be able to have that um, that look, feel, and vibe of being in the office. So that for me is worth the Innovation Award. We'll talk about that more, statue. But more specifically, I want
Definitely,
to
Thomas.
encourage industry players, stakeholders to come on out to CIS 2026 in St. Lucia. The industry is changing fast. It's quite a dynamic environment in which we're operating in. And CIS gives us a platform to be able to talk through those changes and the necessary innovation that must take place to make these programs sustainable and give them longevity. I look forward to seeing and engaging with many of you. So come on out to CIS 2026 in St. Lucia. In 25 in Antigua, we had a fantastic time. In 24 in Grenada, we had a fantastic time. And I have no doubt that in St. Lucia, around Jazz Festival time, we will also have a fantastic time. So come on out. See you guys there.
Thomas, thank you so much for that powerful closing statement. Last year we had citizenship by invitation. This year we're having uh, remote work, another powerful innovation that you spoke about there. I am feeling very excited to have IMA Grenada and your representation at CIS this year. Thomas, I want to thank you for such a powerful discussion this afternoon. And for our audience, I just want to highlight some key takeaways that we got from the conversation here this afternoon, which is the migration capital must be intentional and properly structured. Thomas spoke so ably about that. Also, the credibility that is built through measurable development impact. That's also very important. And thirdly, competitiveness now depends on alignment and mindset shift between investors, the government, and the whole global expectations that the market is now involving. Again, the theme for this year, the Convergence Advantage in Global Capital Mobility. I'm Grenada, very rock solid in the space. I want to thank you for listening, for our listening audience as well. It is an important conversation that challenges how we think about our CBI strategy going forward. And it's one that we all will continue to have in this year's CIS 2026 and CIS of the future. But as of now, of the St. Lucia, it's taking place on May 6th to the 9th at the Royalton Resort and taking place as well with the Jazz Festival. So come for business, have entertainment, vibe with the St. Lucia hospitality, and just be part of the conversation. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for listening.